Attack. Vance. I start with the drive and open my mouth to start with my story, but stop the moment I realize he recognizes me. Fuck. Sometimes I forget people know me now. I have to kill him. I try to keep a low profile, but my status makes it hard. I arrive at the palace, but stop just a few feet away from the gates contemplating my next move. I won't be able to do anything to this guy once we are inside the palace gates, so I have to think of a plan to isolate him, and I have to do it now. I look across the street and notice how quiet the street is, and I wonder what's behind the building as the street seems to go around it. Shit. Do you mind if I grab something just around the corner? I'll come back and drop you. I ask him and he tells me it's fine, also telling me he can even get off here, but I tell him it's not necessary, that I will come back and drop him, making sure to steady my heartbeat since he's a wolf and can hear it. I've had to lie about my identity my whole life, so I've become very good at it. He quickly agrees, and I proceed with the drive. I'm Vance Lance, a renowned businessman, so he trusts me. My heart clenches as I drive into a secluded area of the street, thinking of what I'm going to do to him. He seems like a nice guy, but I have no choice. I bring the car to a stop and he takes out his phone and starts browsing, not paying any attention to me or where we are. As I exit the car, I open the boot and call him, making as if I need his help. He jumps out of the car and rushes over to me, and I point inside the boot. He bends down to take a look, and I use the opportunity to knock him out with the car jack. It's a hard blow. It needed to be hard to knock him out, and he won't be out for long. His wolf will heal him. So I quickly turn him over and rip out his throat, wiping the blood off on his clothes when I'm done before dragging him to the nearest trash can and throwing him inside. After making sure no one's watching me, I sigh and grab his card and cap before heading back to my car and heading in the direction of the palace again. I arrive at the check-in point and show the card, hoping the guards don't recognize me behind the glasses and cap, and they don't. I drive through and they indicate where to park before putting me through the scanner and then escorting me inside. I take my seat, and after a few minutes the kings are announced and we get to our feet as they make their way in, but my brows furrow in confusion seeing Cora by Nolan's side. Their arms are intertwined like they are lovers. She gives him a soft smile as they make their way to their seats, and it's definitely not a boss and secretary smile. What the hell is going on here? Are they lovers? Anselm, Nolan's father, signals for Nolan and Cora to get seated before doing the same with the rest of us while he remains standing. He starts to speak, but I'd be lying if I said I was listening to him. My eyes are on Cora and Nolan the whole time, trying to figure out what's going on, but my questions are soon answered when the king announces their engagement. Shocking all of us, I hear whispers as the journalists around me ask each other who Cora is and which royal house she's from. It's a custom for a prince or king to marry into another royal house. Is she a royal witch? My eyes widen as I realize I need to get out of here, and I unconsciously make myself smaller in the chair as panic starts to set in. I came here to talk and, even though I hate it, blackmail a witch if I have to. But I wasn't prepared for trying to blackmail the fiancé of a king. I thought she was just a peasant. I wasn't even sure if he knows she's a witch. But now finding out she's his lover is a whole different story and needs a whole different plan. I need to get out of here, but I can't do that while the king's still speaking. Cora and Nolan get up and everyone cheers for them. And after that, the king wraps up and we are all invited for refreshments in the main hall. But I have to get out of here. I can't afford to be seen by her anymore. Not while not knowing how I'm going to approach all this. I start making my way to the exit after looking at her again and making sure she didn't see me. I successfully make it outside and a guard escorts me to my car after I tell him I won't be joining the others in the hall, letting out a sigh of relief. I unlock my car and reach for the handle, but just then a male voice speaks behind me, asking me to wait, and I freeze before slowly turning around to find two guards walking up to us. The king would like to have a word with you, he states, making me swallow hard, a bad feeling washing over me. Why? I question them even though knowing full well they won't have the answer. Did Cora see me? But how? I was watching her the whole time and not once did she look in my direction. You'll find out from the king. The guard simply replies. gesturing for me to start walking, and I glance to my right, which is the way to the exit, but I would never make it out of here. Their security is too tight. I sigh and start the walk. Maybe I should just relax. Maybe I'm overreacting, and this is not what I think. Maybe all the journalists were called back. We make our way through the conference hall that's now empty and get inside an elevator that only takes us a few floors up before letting us out again. The guards stop in front of a big door and tell me to go ahead. I hesitantly walk up to the door, my heart beating like it's going to leap out of my chest as I reach for the handle before pushing the door open. I walk inside to find what looks to be an office, and it's empty. I look to my right, since there's another door, not sure if I must go through it or not, but just then the door opens and my eyes widen when Cora comes out. I didn't come. I start to explain, wanting to let her know I didn't come here to fight, looking at the storm in her eyes, but don't get to finish as a sharp pain pierces my neck, causing my hand to immediately fly to it. A syringe with a greenish-looking substance in it that I didn't even see coming falls next to my feet, and I realize she has injected me with something. I try to speak, staggering backwards, but cough out blood, and soon I feel all my strength leaving my body, causing me to tumble to my knees before falling on my back. Her face looking blankly down at me is the last thing I see before darkness takes over. I groan, opening my eyes, and realize I'm in a different room and I'm tied to a chair. I look up to find Cora and Nolan standing in front of me. Nolan facing the window while Cora sits on a chair in front of me. What? I try to speak, panicking, realizing I can't feel Clyde, but my throat is dry and my voice comes out incoherent. You shouldn't have followed me here, Cora drily says, her arms crossed over her chest, and I will my voice out. I didn't kill Astrid. Cora. Nolan I start to say, causing Nolan to snap his head back at me the moment he hears his name, so I quickly add, the vampire. Nolan killed her. I loved her and she loved me. I would have never hurt her, I tell her, but the door opens and two serious-looking guys walk inside the room, causing me to stare at them as they do a neck bow to Nolan. Take him, he says, his tone cold and somewhat bored, but Cora asks them to wait before telling them to wait outside, and he blankly looks at her as she steps up to me. What do you mean? Nolan, the vampire killed her? Why? How? What was she doing with him? We captured him. And when? You captured him? Nolan interrupts, his tone incredulous. Yes, and we were going to turn him over, but Astrid was bothered by the fact that she couldn't read him. His identity was concealed, and we went to get some herbs she needed, but the next thing she dropped dead in my arms, and when I got back to the house, Mother was dead. He killed her. Who the fuck's Mother? Nolan asks, his tone impatient, and I look at him and then Cora, not sure how to answer him. So, you knew she was a witch? Cora says, sounding more like she's stating than asking before looking at him and telling him he'll explain later. Yes, I knew, and I would have never told anyone about her, just as I would never tell anyone about you. Of course, you won't. Dead wolves don't speak, Nolan says before walking to the door and opening it, signaling the guys to come in and wait. Cora says, causing the guys to go out again, and Nolan lets out an annoyed or frustrated sigh. I can't distinguish which before grabbing Cora's arm and tugging her inside the other door. What the hell are you doing? I hear him say before closing the door, and I can't hear anything after that. I start squirming in the chair while calling out for Clyde, but he doesn't respond. It's like he's not there, and the chains are too tight and hard to break, especially without Clyde. After a moment, Cora comes out and the guys that were outside also walking in to wait. I exclaim as they rush up to me with a bag like they are about to cover my head. I didn't come here to blackmail you, Cora, but there's footage of everything that happened at the house and the graveyard this morning. If I don't return, it will be sent to the press and everyone will know about you and your sisters, I tell her, and she orders the men out, her expression turning to one I can't describe but fear. You think you can blackmail me? You don't learn, do you? I don't want to blackmail you, but I had to keep insurance in case you didn't want to listen to me. All I came here to do is to ask that you help me kill the vampire that killed my Astrid, your sister. And I swear the footage will never be seen by anyone. I tell her, leaving out the part that I also need her to help me get my crown, please. I don't want to fight with you, I just need your help, I add. And just then the door opens and Nolan comes out. I'll take it from here, he says, looking at Cora, causing her to frown confused before she lowers her head with an of course, and walks out of the room. He walks up to me and I lower my head in submission. It's considered disrespectful to look a king in the eye, and I'm still hoping they listen to me. So I lower my head. Look at me, he commands. And I do. I should have you killed for coming here and thinking you can blackmail my fiancé, but I won't. I can tell you are desperate, and I've done things out of desperation too. I will help you capture this vampire, as it will be beneficial to me too. But you need to give me your word that you'll never breathe a word of what you saw and know to anyone, he says. And weirdly enough, I don't feel the flood of relief I imagined feeling when they agree. Maybe it's because I still can't feel Clyde, or I underestimated myself. What I know is a scandal after all. I give you my word, Your Majesty, I respond. And he tells me to go back home and wait to hear from him. I hope it's soon. I've already wasted too much time. But I don't say it. I don't want to push it. He walks to the door and lets the guys in, instructing them to let me loose and give me everything I need for my trip before walking out of the room. Nolan Silver. I walk inside my room to be met by a fuming Cora. What the hell was that? Why would you just dismiss me like that? Hey, asterisk, mind your fucking tone. We might be working together, but I'm still the king here, Cora. And soon you'll be playing my submissive wife. Do not forget your place, and do not forget who holds the most power in this arrangement, I remind her. Not in the mood to entertain her stupid tantrums. She's the one who created this mess. She has no fucking right to be mad at me when all I'm trying to do is clean it up. You did this. You are the one who carelessly exposed yourself. I had just found out he killed my sister. Nolan, surely I'm justified. If that were the case, yes, but it's not even the case. Which means you let your emotions get the better of you like you always do. I warned you that would be your downfall. I have worked so hard and sacrificed so much to get to this point. I'm not letting you ruin it, I tell her, and, for the first time, she lowers her head in submission. You're right, I'm sorry, and I promise it won't happen again. Good. Cause this is a mess, but I'm sending my best guy after him. He'll get the job done. What do you mean? He's dying as we speak, right? I let him go. Cora dash. What asterisk why? Nolan. He needs to die. He's seen too much. And you think I don't know that? You think you're the one who gets to tell me? I ask her just as her tone starts to get loud again, like we didn't just address it a minute ago, and she purses her lips, her breathing accelerating. He saw you, and yes, he might be lying about the footage, but we need to make sure, cause we cannot afford to risk it. So I acted like we were agreeing to his request and told him to go home and wait to hear from me, but I've sent Yurik after him. If he's telling the truth, the first person he's gonna contact when he gets home is the person keeping the footage, and Yurik will take care of that person and him. There's no way I'm going to let him live knowing everything he knows. I'm not a fool. Vance. 6 months later. It's been 6 months since I fled my home, and I'm currently in Ymor. I eventually felt Clyde again, but when we got back from Silvera, we couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following us. I wanted Cora to agree to help me, but at the same time, I felt like it was too easy and too sudden. Something didn't feel right about Nolan when he agreed to my request, and I made a promise to myself never to ignore my gut feeling. So I decided to make sure I had my driver's wife search for someone who bears some resemblance to me on the internet, someone who could pose as me and get away with it. And I told them it was for a project I was doing and that they needed to be discreet. I could have done it myself, but I suspected my place might have been bugged, and I didn't want to get people to come and find out if it was, as that would alert Nolan if he lied to me. I wanted to beat him at his own game. I wanted him to think he had the upper hand right up until the moment I expose him. After the double was found, I made sure they made him look like me and organized a dinner for us in one of my hotels. I went to the hotel but never met with him, and after he was told I had rescheduled, he left. getting into a car that looked like mine with the same plate number. But I had the car rigged with a bomb and made sure it exploded with the guy inside. The news spread that I was dead, and I used the opportunity to flee and come here. They got married, and Nolan is getting officially crowned as king in a month, and that's when I plan to strike. That's when I'll attack. I'm going to expose them in front of all the world, and they're going to wish they never messed with me. I get up yawning, and just then my phone rings, and it's the guy in charge of finding the vampire. I answer it. Nova. I open my eyes, feeling myself being lifted, and I look up to see Nolan smiling down at me and realize I must have fallen asleep studying 4 months ago. Nolan and I moved out of the Abbotts and finally moved into our place, and a month ago I registered for online learning to finish my education. I wanted to get a job, but he doesn't want me to. He says he's got us, and I must just do what I've always wished to do. Finish my education. He wanted me to go to college, saying he wants me to feel what it feels like to live a normal, happy life again, but I told him I didn't mind starting online. Maybe next semester I'll go and physically attend classes. Plus, despite everything, I'm at my happiest right now. He got off probation and was hired permanently, and things have been smooth for us. Coming to this place was the best thing to happen to us. I spent the first few months holding my breath, afraid that something was going to happen, but now I have started to relax and finally breathe. The Abbotts visit us often. Kian practically lives here. He has more clothes here than he has at home, and we always have Sunday dinners at their house. I moan, tightening my arms around Nolan's neck as he gently places me on the bed, causing him to fall on the bed, and he chuckles before pecking me on the lips and pulling me to lie on his chest. What time is it? When did you get home? He was working overtime today. It's 12:05 a.m. and I just got home now, he says, placing a kiss on my forehead, but I gasp, realizing it's late. We need to get some sleep. I have a test at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and I want to wake up and study for a bit again before starting with it. I abruptly get up, causing him to look at me, biting back a smile as I run to the closet to take out my pajamas and put them on. While asking him if he's hungry, he says he's not, but will take a quick shower before joining me in bed, and I tell him, okay, knowing he'll probably get to bed the same time as me since he's going to use his vampire speed. I envy him sometimes. He makes me feel so slow. He gets into the bed just as I lay my head on the pillow, and we share a tender kiss before bidding each other good night. I love you, I whisper, feeling sleep take over, and he tells me he loves me too. My eyes flutter close as he switches off the bedside lights, but a loud bang on the door causes them to snap open again. I look at him to find his expression mirroring mine before sitting up on the bed as the banging continues before someone calls out to us, Becca? I mutter as Nolan gets off the bed using his speed to head to the front. Hearing Rebecca's voice, I don't even throw on a robe as I jump after Nolan, following him to the front. Rebecca comes in breathless, disheveled with blood all over her before collapsing in Nolan's arms. They took them, as she says, breathless, tears flooding from her eyes as she grips on Nolan's shirt. They took Lydia and Jabari. Please help them. What? Who took them? I ask, shocked, my heartbeat immediately accelerating. The men, wolves like you. They're looking for a vampire. They said they know where it is, she says, her voice breaking as she buries herself in Nolan's chest, shaking with sobs. And I look at Nolan to find that familiar look in his eyes, the one he had the night we left Nova, and then again when we left Oldham. They found us. A hybrid. Nova. Do you know where they took them? I ask, knowing full well she won't know as panic and fear washes over me, impairing my ability to think. What have we done? This is all our fault. I feel something wet running down my cheek, and I realize I'm crying and quickly wipe it off, following behind Nolan as he carries her to the couch. I don't know. They loaded them into a car, and Kian, he was still fighting, but he was badly hurt. They were shooting arrows at him, and he told me to run. I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave him, but I was so scared, she says, her voice breaking towards the end, still clutching Nolan's shirt, and he hugs her, his eyes flashing black for a moment. It's going to be okay. I'm going to find them, he says, and pulls back from the hug, gently placing his hands on her shoulders, giving her a reassuring look. I will go look for them, and you need to stay here. I'll come back for the both of you. He says the last part, looking at me, and my eyes widen at his words. He's trying to leave me behind? What? He thinks I'll let him go out there on his own? There's no way in hell I'm doing that. Yes. I'm scared. Since I don't know what we'll be going up against, especially since the leader's description fits Vance's, and I don't know what he's got with him this time, but I'm not letting him go out there by himself. Who will have his back? I'm not letting you go out there by yourself. Nolan, I won't do it. Please don't ask that of me. We are a team. We are in this together. We're going out there together, and we'll face Vance together. I tell him, placing my hands on his chest, and he pulls me into a hug. I know, my love, but I don't know what we're going to face out there, and I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you. Just as I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you, I'm going with you. I'm not some fragile human. Nolan, I'm a wolf. I'm an alpha. Please let me go with you. Please don't ask me to send you out there by yourself when this is all my fault. To begin with. What asterisk? This isn't your fault. Why would you say that? He asks, pulling back from the hug with a concerned expression before wiping my tears off. You warned me about Vance. You told me something didn't feel right about him, but I didn't listen to you. If I'd listened to you and walked out of that place, all this wouldn't be happening right now. He wouldn't have discovered us, and he wouldn't be hunting us. This is not your fault. Nova, you were trying to look out for us. You were desperate for us. My love, I would have done the same. Even feeling how I felt if he had offered me the job. Please don't ever say any of this is your fault again, he says, and I bury myself in the chest, finally allowing myself to cry before pulling back and scrambling for my clothes. After getting dressed, we head out and tell Becca to lock up after us and not to let anyone in. How is this even happening? We had just stopped looking over our shoulders. We started to breathe again, to smile, to sleep. We had started to believe that maybe this was it, that we had found our sanctuary, and now this. I can't believe they found us. I can't believe Lydia, Jabari, and Kian are hurt or worse because of us, and we were never even honest with them. Nolan and I spoke about coming clean to them. It bothered us that they were good to us and we were lying to them, but we were afraid that knowing what he is would scare them and ruin things. We didn't want to have to run again. We were fortunate when we came here and met them, and they kept us from sleeping in the streets, but we didn't know what would happen in the next city, so even though it tore us apart, we kept quiet. We enter the part of town where the Abbotts live, but just then, we see it, thick black smoke coming from the direction of their house. Nolan uses his vampire speed until right around the corner, since we can clearly hear the commotion of the whole neighborhood. Wide awake, oh my god, I gasp as the house, or what remains of it, comes into our view. Flames leaping. A crowd has gathered around it, some trying to put out the fire, while others are on their phones speaking to what I assume to be the fire department. I clamp my hand over my mouth, muffling my sobs as my knees give in at the thought of them being inside the flames, and Nolan pulls me to his chest, supporting me. I bury myself in his chest, muffling my screams, unable to hold them back. God, please. No, this is all our doing. We did this to them. We killed them. We don't know if they were inside. My love, Rebecca told us they loaded them in a car. Remember? Nolan says, tightening his hold on me as I fist his shirt, shaking with sobs, still having no strength to stand. They are not dead. Nova, Vance wouldn't kill them before they led him to us. He has probably been hunting us for months, and they are the first real lead he's got. He won't kill them just yet. We need to pull it together and find them, he says, pulling back and cupping my face, and I nod, tears still coming out as he places a kiss on my forehead, telling me he loves me. Just then, I catch a group of men coming in our direction from the corner of my eye, and I pull away from him, looking at them, causing him to look at them too. I recognize one of them. I've seen him around the house a couple of times when we were still living with the Abbotts. He works with Jabari. Atticus, he says, shaking Nolan's hand before introducing the other men. I gather from their introduction that the other men work for the same company as them, just on a different site. He also tells them that Nolan knows about wolves, since they all think he's human. Dawn tells us that his daughter was out with her boyfriend and saw them when they were loaded in a car and ran home to tell him. One of the men said something about the dock, and he thinks they took them to an abundant warehouse there. since that whole industrial area is abandoned. Without wasting any time, we get in the cars and head for the dock. We arrive at the place and I can't help but be creeped out. The place is big and some of the lights are not working, and those that are flickering like an old haunted city. Dawn came with 5 men. So together we are now 8, and we decide to split into 2 teams of 4. Dawn wants Nolan to wait in the car, but he refuses, and he reluctantly agrees, but tells him to stay by his side. Dawn, Nolan, and I with another guy are one team. There are random sounds that sound like engines running, and I don't understand. Since there's nothing here, we look through all the buildings and find nothing, and we decide to go to the other side and help the other team, but a stench of blood floods our noses just as we finish climbing over the wall, and we immediately rush in the direction of it, careful not to make any noise. The stench gets stronger the further we walk, but suddenly there's a thud behind us like someone falling, causing us to come to a halt. We look back to find a body lying on the ground, and it's one of our guys. Dawn and the other guy rush back to check if he's alive while Nolan and I stand on guard, but just then another body drops right in front of us, and we look up to notice the other 2 wolves hanging by their neck on the roof. Nolan and I take our fighting stance, and just then men and wolves, already in their form, appear from the shadows encircling us. I notice that the men have arrows in their hands, and I feel that familiar chill, the one I felt back in the forest that night, run down my spine as I take in their scents. Hunters. Dawn spits through a clenched jaw, taking his stance behind us, facing the other way as we stand back to back. Stay close to me. Yes, Nolan says to me, and I see Dawn give us a sad look before looking away again. Probably 'cause he thinks Nolan's human and doesn't stand a chance. Yes, and Nolan, I love you. I love you too. Finally, you get to pay for what you did, Vance says, looking at Nolan as he emerges behind the men dragging a bleeding Jabari before throwing him on the ground. His hands tied behind his back. Tears roll down my cheek as I listen to him croak like he's taking his last breath, and I feel Nolan's aura spreading through the whole room, causing the hair at the back of my neck to stand. For the second time since I met him, I see everyone's eyes widen for the first time, including Vance's, as it cuts through them, making them shiver. I've read about vampires before, and a lot since meeting Nolan, but the power that Nolan sometimes demonstrates isn't vampire-like. Back in Nova, when he was in the circle, he regained his strength before stepping out of the circle, when only a small part was open, and that was not supposed to happen. He was supposed to be able to breathe again, but his strength was only supposed to return when he fully stepped out of the circle again in Oldham, when the snake switched off the light and Carla and I were in the dark. He told me he didn't fight the snake blind. He said his eyesight never left. If he had a wolf, I'd say he was a hybrid, as it is the only thing that comes close to explaining his strength and abilities, but he doesn't. His fangs elongate as he hisses, causing a shocked look on Dawn and the guy as they look at him in horror. This is between me and you. Let them go, and let's settle this man to man, he says, his voice sounding deeper than normal, but Vance laughs before snapping his fingers. The men behind him part, and Kian and Lydia are shoved to the front with chains that are tied to the ceiling around their necks. They are bleeding and Lydia is crying. While Kian can barely even walk, they kick them on the back of their legs, causing them to fall on their knees before Vance Jabari stretches out his hand as Lydia does the same, trying to get to her husband, who's busy trying to crawl to her. A sob escapes me looking at the scene and unable to hold back my sobs at Lydia's wailing. Kian's head is hanging low like he would fall flat on his face if they loosened the chains. I didn't do this. You did. When you took shelter in their home, you brought death to these people, and they brought death to themselves when they refused to talk. This piece of shit would rather die and watch his whole family die than give you up. He's a fucking traitor to our kind. Vance spits before kicking Jabari in the face. No, please. Stop. Please stop hurting them. I beg him to stop, not being able to watch what he's doing. These are good people. Take us, it's us you want, so take us, please. Oh, I will take you, and you are going to pay for all of it, but first I want this rubbish to hand himself over so I can kill him right in front of your eyes after I've made him watch as I fuck you to the dirt like the piece of trash you are. He spits But next, there's a groan followed by a growl as he crashes through the wall before Nolan charges at him again. The action takes us all by surprise, as none of us saw Nolan move, but there's no time to comprehend it as arrows start flying left, right, and center. The wolves also charging at us. Kian and Lydia are pulled in the air, and I try to make my way to them, but it proves difficult as we are outnumbered. Nolan and Vance are on the other side of the wall, and things crashing and the wall cracking every time someone slams against it is all that can be heard while we take on the wolves and hunters coming at us. 3 hunters come at me at once, shooting their arrows, but I slide on the floor and sweep them off their feet before partially transforming my hand and slicing the throats open. All at once they fall to the ground, and a brown wolf comes charging at me, causing me to take my stance, but just then another one knocks me on my face and claws me at my back, causing me to scream, but it's quickly ripped off of me, and I roll to my back to find Dawn's guy giving me a hand before gasping and ducking out of the way as Vance crashes through the wall and lands miserably in the place I was previously lying in. Nolan lands on top of him, digging his claws into his chest, causing him to groan in pain. The hunters and wolves all leave us and go to aid Vance, shooting their arrows at Nolan, causing him to fall off of Vance. I've got him. Go, Dawn says, seeing my conflict, and I transform, leaping over them as I head for the abbots. I pass Jabari and transform back to my human form quickly before jumping up and hanging on the rails, before using my feet to support myself as I use my hands to untie Kian and let him drop to the ground. Before doing the name to Lydia, the ceiling is high, but I know they can survive the fall, but if their necks break, they are dead. Kian coughs, showing signs of life for the first time, while Lydia just lies there like she's dead, and I notice how Jabari tries to crawl to them and decide to jump down and untie him first. But I hear a groan and look up to find everyone ganging up on Nolan and Dawn. Arrows are sticking out of them like porcupines as the hunters throw chains around Nolan, causing him to fall on his back. I panic and jump down, still looking at him, and I don't even see Vance before he catches me by the throat, knocking the air out of me. I choke as he slams me on my back before getting on top of me, straddling me while naked. I try to claw him off of me, but he grabs my hands before looking back at Nolan and licking me on the face with a smirk, but it doesn't last long, as Nolan throws the hunters and wolves off of him, and Vance's eyes widen as he lunges at him, wrapping the chains around his neck and throwing him across the room. He lands on his face, cracking the wall on impact, and Nolan catches him in a headlock before he can hit the ground, about to remove his head, but just then, a gunshot sound resonates through the air, and we snap our heads in the direction of it. Stop! A guy with red hair walks in, shoving someone in front of him, a gun held to her head, and my eyes widen, looking at a trembling Rebecca. Vance uses the opportunity to punch Nolan's throat, causing him to loosen his hold, and he slips out of his arms, and I let out a scream as he rips Jabari's head off. I fall to my knees, feeling like someone's just ripped out my heart as Kian, who I didn't even see get up, drops to his knees as well, but all our heads snap to our right as Nolan lets out a frightening growl that rattles the walls before becoming a blur as he tears through Vance's men. All we see are bodies without heads, some without hearts, raining down around us. What the hell? How did he do that? Vampires don't growl. I try to follow him with my eyes, but like that day in the forest, I can't. I hear a gunshot sound before seeing the redhead of that guy rolling and stopping at my feet, and hear Rebecca's scream, causing me to look back at her to find her passing out on the floor, and just then I see him, covered in blood, chest heaving up and down while holding a squirming Vance by the throat. Someone shoots an arrow at him, but Nolan catches it and buries it in Vance's eye, causing him to scream. I immediately lunge at the hunter lying on his back who just shot at Nolan and rip his throat out. But just then something explodes next to Nolan, sending him flying on his back. I screamed, scrambling to him, everything happening too fast. I find him disoriented and coughing out blood, and I pull him onto my lap, realizing Vance has escaped, but not giving a damn about that right now. I brush his hair out of his face, panicking as I assure him that he's going to be okay, and just then, his wounds start healing. Lydia walks up to us as well, and Nolan takes off his torn shirt and gives it to me, since I'm naked and Lydia and I help him up, but a small scream escapes me as Kian, out of nowhere, punches him in the face, knocking him back down while still dizzy. Screaming he killed his father before transforming to his wolf and pouncing on him, causing Lydia to scream. Horrified, she jumps on top of Nolan and shields him, causing Kian to let out a growl as he tries to get at him. But Lydia clings on to Nolan, screaming at Kian to stop. He doesn't stop, and drags his mother off by her shirt before charging back at Nolan, who's still lying on his back, but I transform, leaping over him to stand between him and Nolan. He snarls, warning me, but over my dead body. Will he hurt him? I drop down into a defensive crouch, ready to protect my mate with my life. Silver. Nova. Kian lets out a growl before charging at me, causing Lydia to scream, scrambling to her feet, but the next thing we hear is a whimper as he falls miserably on his side on the far side of the room. Nolan standing in front of me. Are you okay? He asks, glancing at me as Kian gets to his feet. Please don't hurt him. Nolan, please, Lydia says, shocking us. How the hell does she know his name? Stop this, Kian. Your father knew who and what he was. He knew the truth and chose to protect him because he could see he was a good person. He didn't kill your father. He made the scarifies because he would have wanted someone to do it for you too, she says to Kian, and he staggers like he's going to fall before letting out a loud howl before bolting out of the place. Rebecca, who I didn't even see get up, calls out, running after him, but she'll never catch a wolf. Lydia calls her back, telling her to let him go, saying he needs time alone. I also shift back to my human form, and Nolan strips one of the hunters, since I tore the already torn shirt he gave me when I shifted, and gives me his shirt to wear. The shirt smells disgusting, but feeling I don't have a choice, I take it. It's either the disgusting shirt or walking out of here naked. Since I can't walk in the streets in my wolf form, Dawn sees my discomfort and takes off his, giving it to me. It's torn and bloody, but it's better than a hunter's shirt. I thank him and take it, hiding behind Nolan, even though he's seen me naked so many times during the course of this night anyway. But it's different now. We are not fighting. We need to get out of here, Lydia says, now kneeling next to Jabari's body, wiping her tears, and we walk up to her before kneeling next to her, tears escaping our eyes as well. He's covered from the chest up. Kian must have done it. We need to get out of here, but we can't leave him here like this, she says, her voice breaking, and Nolan and Dawn both speak at the same time, saying we won't. Rebecca and I help her up and walk ahead while Nolan and Dawn take Jabari's body. I can't believe he's gone. I can't believe he sacrificed his life for us, even knowing we were lying to him. Knowing Nolan is a vampire, I will never forget him. He'll always hold a special place in my heart. We walk to the cars and they load his body at the back. Dawn advises that we head straight for the cemetery and start by burying him. Since we cannot be driving around with a decapitated body, we get to the cemetery and they start digging, but we look up, hearing someone coming, to see Kian walking up to us. He walks up to Nolan and stops right in front of him before snatching the shovel out of his hand, causing Nolan to back off as he starts helping Dawn dig Jabari's put inside the grave, and we walk away from the grave, giving Lydia and Kian a moment to say their last words. Nolan pulls me to his chest and I wrap my arms around his waist, laying my face against his chest as we stand next to the car waiting for them. We know we have to get out of this city now, and we don't know where we're going to go next, but we can't just leave Lydia and Kian like this. We need to at least know they'll be okay, even if that means staying longer and risking Vance coming back with reinforcements. They walk over to us after a while, Kian walking straight to the car without even sparing us a glance, the pain on his face causing my heart to clench. We're going to take the boat and go to my brother in Silvera, and you can come with us and stay there until you figure out what you're going to do, she says as we settle inside the car. We can't go with you, Nolan says, causing Lydia to look at him. We've already cost you a great deal. A good man lost his life because of us. We can't follow you. We can't put you in any more danger. Where will you go? We don't know yet, but we'll figure something out. I'm not asking you to come with us and live with us. I'm asking you to come with us so you can regroup and stand a chance. If you stick around here, Chances are that Vance person will find you, and my husband's sacrifice will be for nothing. You need to survive, you need to live. And for you to do that, you need a place to go lay low for a while and regroup, even if it's just a week, and then you'll find your own way. You know, Jabari wouldn't want me to leave you out here, he wouldn't. She's right, Dawn says. And I look at Nolan to find that familiar look in his eye, the look he always has when he's going to refuse something. So I answer before he can and say we will. He looks at me, knowing what I just did, but I know he won't go against me. I don't want to put them in danger too. But Lydia's right. We need a place to go lay low and regroup. Having no choice, he agrees, and we head to Silvera after thanking Dawn for everything. I'm surprised that he's not angry at us, that he's not blaming us for the death of his friends, and I decide to ask him why. He says, because Jabari was their leader. He was like a big brother to all of them, and if he lay his life on the line for us, who are they to question him? I shed a few tears at that. He was truly one of a kind, and we'll never see his like again. We drive back to the dock, but on a different side than the one we were at earlier, and get inside a boat. I didn't even know Jabari had a boat. We find supplies inside, like he was getting ready to take a trip, and I'm surprised he had this ready for you. He put all this in here the first day he met a man on the streets looking for two people who fit your description. He just knew it was you. He always felt there was something odd about you. She says the last part, looking at Nolan, and then the blood bags started going missing on your shifts, but as I said, he saw you were a good person, so he chose to keep your secret and get this boat ready just in case the day that you are discovered came and you had to run. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for all of this. I'm sorry for lying to you. We wanted to tell you, but we were afraid, Nolan says, tears running down his cheeks, and Lydia nods, pulling him into a brief hug as tears trail down her cheeks as well, before asking us to excuse her and telling us to take the left cabin. The boat has two cabins. She and Kian take one, and Nolan and I take one. Rebecca didn't follow from the graveyard. She and Dawn went home. She said she will follow during the holidays since she's still going to university. We clean up and change, putting on the clothes we found here. We are exhausted, but we are too agitated to sleep, but we know we must try. Lydia says it will take us at least 5 days to get to Silvera by boat if the sea is kind. Rose. I'm standing in front of the mirror removing my makeup when there's a knock on the door. Duncan, who just came out of the shower, glances over at me before throwing on his robe and heading towards the door. Who disturbs the king after he has retired to bed? I glance at the clock and it's 10:30 p.m. I'm sorry to disturb you so late, Your Majesty, but Lance is here and he requests an audience with the king. I told him to leave a message with me, but he says it's for the king's ears and it's about the Lady Nova. My king, I hear Travis say, causing me to drop what I was doing and throw on my robe before rushing to the front, but I see my husband coming back. I heard everything, so there's no need to ask. Duncan puts on his sweats, and I also put on something decent before following him to the front. He doesn't try and stop me. He knows I won't stop. The man gets up when he sees us, but my eyes widen, taking in his appearance. He has a black patch over his eye. Did he fight with the vampire? Your Majesty, my queen, he says, giving a bow. And I notice something funny with his mouth as he looks at us, but my eyes widen seeing he has no front teeth. I'm sorry to bother you so late, my king, but this is urgent. We located the Lady of Nova in Worcester, and I gathered all the men and went there, but the vampire set a trap for us. He had managed to get a group of hunters who thought he was human, and they slaughtered all my men. What? Duncan asks in disbelief, looking at the man in the face. He lured us into a trap, my king. Hunters? Where in the hell would it get hunters? There haven't been hunters in decades. I don't believe this. Just as there hasn't been vampires in decades. My king, this dash, he says, removing his eye patch to reveal a hole. My God, I mutter, clamping my hand over my mouth in horror. A hunter's arrow did this to me, my king. But we killed most of them. I've come to ask you for more men so we can go after him now. He's sure he's defeated us. He won't be expecting us to be back so soon. We have to strike now before he's had time to regroup. It doesn't sound like it needs to regroup to me. You look like you need to regroup, and I cannot give you my men. I cannot give you more men for him to slaughter. You tried and failed. It's enough. The council will take it from here. No, no, no. You don't understand. He needs to pay, he mutters, shaking his head like something's wrong with him. His demeanor changing, and I notice his trembling hands that he quickly balls into fists. Before stepping up to us, Duncan narrows his eyes at him and he realizes what he has done and steps back before going down on one knee in front of us. I made you a promise, my king. I promised to bring your daughter home, and I had her and let her slip through my fingers again. I know you do not trust me to get this done, but I swear on my mother I will bring her back here if you just give me one more chance, if you trust me one more time. Please, my king, he says. And Duncan and I share a look. It's now obvious to us that this is not just about serving us and bringing Nova home anymore. This has become personal to this man. Duncan gestures for Travis, who stands not so far from us, to come over, and he does arise. He says to the man, and he does show him to his room and see to it that he has everything he needs. You'll have my decision in the morning, he says. The last part looking at the man. Thank you, my king, my queen. He salutes before walking away with Travis. Nolan Silver. 5 days later. What is it? Why dash? Cora asks, coming inside my room after I called her, but stops mid-sentence, looking at what has me on my feet at 4:30 in the morning. Alarmed, the heart started going crazy, and I have no idea what the hell is going on. I was sleeping, and the next thing its beat started rising, and now I'm pretty sure the whole palace would hear it if it weren't for the soundproof doors. Why is it doing that? She asks, kneeling next to it. But how the hell am I supposed to know that? It's her voodoo that's powering this thing. She should know. Did you do something to it? Something like what? What would I do to it? You know I never touched this thing. Why is it doing this, Cora? I don't know, she says, her voice coming out soft as she stares at it. This is just fucking great. Today I'm finally getting what I've always wanted, and this fucking thing chooses to do this? Do you think it's going to stop? It better not stop, Cora. You assured me, as long as I left it alone and didn't disturb it, that it would not stop. I bombard her with questions, not even waiting for her to answer. If this thing stops before I'm crowned, it's over. I know what I said. Nolan, look. I have never heard of this, but the scrolls would have the answer. You need to delay the crowing so I can go and find out. Dash. What asterisk? No. I'm not delaying the crowing. If anything, I'm speeding it up. You don't know what this thing is doing. What if you don't even make it to the bloody scrolls, and this thing stops? No. I'm not taking that chance. I'm going to wake father up, and he needs to get me crowned, and he needs to do it now. I don't give a damn about the higher council and their stupid rules. I tell her and walk out of the room. Going to my father's room. I'm not going to lose everything I worked so hard for. Nova. What's wrong? Did you have that dream again? I ask Nolan as he abruptly sits up from the bed, panting before leaning his head back. Closing his eyes, I sit up and straddle him before cupping his face. Hey, look at Dash, I start to say, caressing his cheeks, but the words die in my throat when he opens his eyes. What the hell? I whisper, letting go of his face, and he looks at me frowning. What? What is it? He asks, panicked, taking in my expression. Your eyes. I whisper, still shocked. Getting off of him, and he jumps off the bed and stands in front of the cabin door. Since there's a mirror attached to there, silver. I finish walking up behind him as he stands in front of the mirror, his silver eyes wide. What the hell? He whispers, closing them before opening them again, but they're still silver. Aries. Nova. What is this? What's happening to me? Nolan asks with a horrified expression before closing his eyes again. And I take his hand, wishing I had the answers for him, but I don't. I have never heard of a vampire whose natural eye color changed. How do they feel? Do they hurt? I ask, not knowing what else to say. And he shakes his head. No, they don't feel any different, he says. But just then there's a knock on the door, startling the both of us. Lydia speaks. telling us we have arrived in Silvera and her brother is waiting for us at the dock. We didn't even notice the boat had stopped moving. I tell her we are coming, looking at Nolan the whole time. His eyes are now open and I frown, noticing how the white has disappeared, swallowed by the silver that has now darkened. What in the world is going on? He glances at the mirror before shaking his head in a frightened manner, closing them again as he starts to panic. Wawa dash, he says, stepping back, and I reach for his hands, removing them away from his face before cupping it. Hey, look at me, I say to him, but he keeps them closed. We are going to figure it out together, Nolan. It's going to be okay. We are going to read more about vampires. We'll find the answers. It's going to be okay, my love. I reassure him, and he opens them again, and I watch as the white appears again as they turn to their now new normal. Silver, the dark silver, must have replaced the black. How am I going to explain this? You don't have to. Lydia and Kian know you are a vampire. Now we'll tell them it's a vampire thing. The person we are about to meet doesn't know you. He won't know they weren't always silver, I tell him, still cupping his cheeks, and he places a kiss on my forehead before pulling me into a hug. We don't stay long in the hug since we don't want to keep everyone waiting, so we break it and head out. We step outside the boat, Lydia walking ahead, Kian following behind him, and spot a man smiling and walking up to us. He and Lydia share a hug before hugging Kian and then walking over to us and shaking our hands, introducing himself as Linus. There's an awkward silence for a moment since we don't know how to introduce ourselves to him. It doesn't feel right to say we are Atticus and Athena now that Lydia and Kian know we are not, but Lydia cuts through the silence, introducing us herself as Atticus and Athena. I notice a slight frown on her face as Nolan and her eyes meet, probably because of the change in eye color, but she doesn't say anything. The man keeps looking back at the boat like he's expecting another person before asking about Jabari, causing Nolan to tighten his hold on me as I lean my head against his shoulder. Lydia tells him she will explain to him later, and his face takes a concerned frown, looking between all of us, and I know he can tell something's wrong, as he finally gives a soft nod. He leads us to the car and we head into the city, my mind drifting off to Jabari, wishing he were here, wishing he survived and fled with us. I can't believe he even had an escape plan for us. I feel tears pooling in my eyes at the thought, but hold them back. We cried for days on the boat, but it still didn't bring him back. He's still gone. We reach the city, and it's absolutely beautiful like Jabari used to tell us. I lay my head against the window watching the neon lights. Since it's still a bit dark, the city is the biggest of all the cities. It is the king's city after all, but Nolan and I will need to move on very quickly. We can't stay here. This is dangerous ground for us. We have literally delivered ourselves to the king's doorstep. We reach the man's home, and it's beautiful and huge too. I wonder what he does. He shows us all to our rooms and tells us to make ourselves at home. He asks us if we want to get a bit more sleep, since he can imagine sleeping on the boat wasn't comfortable, or if we want to freshen up and have breakfast, and we tell him we would like to freshen up and get a bit more sleep. We haven't had a decent meal for 5 days. Nolan hasn't even eaten anything, but food is the last thing on our minds right now. Nolan and I have only been living in Worcester for less than a year, but it grew on us. All of them grew on us. They became our family. Their home became our home, and now all of that is lost, and it's because of us. We head to our room, and he shows us where everything is before leaving us alone. Nolan plops on the bed, and I walk up to him and part his legs, standing between them before pulling him into a hug. He wraps his arms around my waist, and we stay like that for a long moment before we decide to get up and take a shower and get some sleep if we can after that. I open my eyes and realize I'm alone in bed. I sit up and find Nolan standing by the window, staring at the outside. I also look at the clock, and it's 10:55 a.m. I walk up to him and wrap my arms around his waist from behind before laying my head against his back. He doesn't say anything, but reaches for my hands, placing his on top. I'm very worried about him. This eye color change is not sitting right on him. It's worrying him, and I wish I can take his worry away, but I can't. I also don't understand it. I notice there's a computer in this room, and I will ask Linus if I can use it, and if he says I can, I will do some research on it. We stay like that for a while before I hear him speak. I had a different dream back in the boat, he says. causing me to pull back, and he turns around and slides to the floor. I do the same and we sit facing each other. I was running into a forest. I don't know what I was running from, but I was terrified of it. I could feel the fear like it was real. I had a heart, and it was beating so loud. I felt like I was going to lose my mind. I couldn't take the beating, and I clasped my hands over my ears as I ran, and just then I saw a light in the middle of the forest and ran to it. I realized as I got closer that it was a house. My clothes were torn and I looked rugged, like I looked when I was in the cave. The house also looked like an old abandoned house. It was in bad condition, but when I entered it was big on the inside. It was like a hall, and everything inside was made of gold. Just then I saw a man standing and facing away from me. He had long silver hair, and he spoke. He said, "You're home." What? I ask, surprised and confused by the dream, but a knock on the door interrupts us. We tell the person to enter, and Linus enters. "You're up. Thank God. I need your help," he says, looking at Nolan as we get to our feet. "Sure. What do you need?" "The acting king is being crowned today as the official king, and I have to unveil his statue after he's crowned. I'm a stonemason, and I was hired to do the sculpture, and I have to unveil it today, but the guy that I work with's wife just went into labor, and she's having some complications. My second guy is also out of reach, and I don't have time to go look for him since the crowning has been moved up. I would have asked Kian, but he's not in his room, and I don't know where he is." "So you want me to come with you?" Nolan asks, since it's obvious where this is going, but it's too risky. Nolan can't go. "Yes, please. You'd be doing me a huge favor, and I will pay you a day's wage. I'll even double it." "What does this unveiling entail?" "Not much. We've already put it in place during the week. Now we'll just walk up to it, and you'll go to the other side while I take the other, and we'll pull the cover down together. That's all." "Will we have to stand up there the whole time waiting to uncover it?" Nolan asks, and I don't understand why he's asking all this. He can't go. "No, we'll just go up when we are called and do it. There's no need to pay me. I'll go with you," he says, shocking me. Has he lost his mind? "Thank you so much. I owe you big time. I'm so sorry for stealing him, and I'll bring him back in one piece. I promise," he says, looking at me, causing me to try and quickly fix myself since it was frowning. Disagreeing with this whole thing. "Breakfast is ready downstairs. If you want to quickly eat something, I'll organize you something to wear," he says, and rushes out of the room. "Nolan, you can't go. You have to tell him you can't go," I tell him, standing in front of him, placing my hands on his chest. "He needs my help. It'll be fine." "No. I need you. What happens if someone recognizes you? Jabari was able to do it. You'll never make it out there. Please don't go," I beg him, feeling tears pooling in my eyes, and he pulls me into a hug. "I don't like this. Jabari recognized me because he was living with me. It's a crowning. My love, those people will be in good spirits. A vampire will be the last thing on their minds. I won't stay to mingle. I'll come right back the moment we are done. I promise." "No, Nolan," I plead, fisting his shirt, burying my face against his chest. "I'll come back to you. I promise. You know how I always get a bad feeling about things. How worried I always am. But I don't have a bad feeling about this. Plus, I don't feel I'm at liberty to say no to him right now. We are under his roof, and he's Lydia's brother. Lydia, who's already lost so much because of us. If there's anything I can do to help them, then I want to do it. My love, please understand and trust me," he says. And even though I don't want him to go, I understand his point. I get why he wants to do it. He cups my face, wiping the tears I didn't even realize were falling using the pads of his thumbs. "I will come back to you," he reassures me before leaning down and capturing my lips in a long, passionate but tender kiss. "I love you," I tell him as we pull back. "I love you." Just then Linus knocks again and enters with a tux and lays it on the bed for Nolan. He changes into the tux and they head out. After that I also walk to Lydia's room and knock. She tells me to come in, and I walk inside to find her sitting up on the bed. She looks at me and I see her face turn into a worried frown before opening her arms, and I run into her arms and break down. I feel like I'm going to lose my mind with worry. "Nolan the vampire. You're nervous. Linus says, snapping me out of thoughts. I'm nervous, but where I'm going is not what's on my mind right now. I'm thinking about the dream I had about all these dreams I've been having. They don't tie together except for the fact that in all of them, I'm always in some fancy-looking place. Part of the reason why I agreed to help Linus was the dream I had. I dreamed of a man with silver hair and woke up with silver eyes, and then he came and asked me to go with him to the Silver Palace. I know I'm not a silver. Hell, I'm not even a Leakin, but what if it's all connected still? What if I will find a clue there, or see someone I will recognize? Or what if I will get caught? Even though I don't feel I will, but I can't help but ask that what if it's death that's calling me? We are almost there. Linus speaks again, making me realize I didn't reply to him, and I open my mouth to speak, but groan, clutching my head, feeling something like some type of energy force field cutting through me. Are you all right? I hear him ask, but I also hear his heart beating louder than just a second ago. Are you okay? He asks again. I'm fine, I reply, straightening up, but his heart is getting louder and louder. We come up to the palace gates, but I can't take it anymore. It's becoming like the beating in my dream. Is his heart going to stop? Is that why I had the dream? Are you okay? I ask him as we head to the check-in point. I'm fine. Are you sure, Koss, your heart is? I start to say, but stop mid-sentence, remembering he's human, and even though his sister was married to a wolf, it still doesn't guarantee that he knows about the supernatural. How will I explain hearing his heartbeat? My heart. No, I meant mine is beating very fast right now. You're nervous, but it's okay. You'll see there's nothing to be nervous about, he says, and I turn my head to the side, closing my eyes, trying to block out the sound. I can't even hear myself think something's not right with his heart. I need to do something, but what? We are directed to the parking area, and we exit the car. He takes out something like a small toolbox that I assume he needs to do the unveiling, but I hear him curse suddenly. What? I forgot to put the damn thing back last night. Listen, you go on ahead inside, I'll be back, he says, grabbing the car door, but I hold it open. I can't go inside all alone. What do you mean you'll be back? I'll be back now. Just go inside and say you are the stonemason at the door. You'll be taken to your seat, and I'll be back before you know it, he says, and pulls the door closed before quickly reversing out of the parking lot. Fuck. Okay, Nolan, just breathe, I tell myself, but frown, looking back, since I can still hear the heart beating, but he's not there. What the hell? I mutter, and just then a guard walks up to me and asks to escort me inside. I don't resist, since attracting attention is the last thing I want, but I find myself placing my hand on my chest where my heart would be as the sound of the heart keeps on. Whose heart am I hearing? Am I losing my mind? The guard tells me to enter, and a man who looks to be welcoming the guests walks up to me. He asks me for my name, and I tell him to see a frown on his face the moment I mention my name, Atticus. Before he repeats it like he knows and owns the name, I quickly tell him what Linus said, and he tells me to go through another door and take the third front row. If I thought this wasn't nerve-wracking before, I was lying. My hands are sweating, and I don't even understand the logic of it, since I never get hot. Two men push the door open, and I walk inside to find the place packed, but I hear someone gasp on my left, and I look at the woman, clasping her hand over her mouth, getting on her feet, looking at me like she's looking at a ghost. Gasps soon erupt all around me, everyone getting on their feet before the place suddenly becomes dead quiet, all their eyes wide and on me like they are seeing a ghost. What the hell? I look around confused before turning around, and my eyes widen as I catch a view of myself in the mirror doors. My hair is silver. What is happening to me? I whisper, confused, as fear and panic start to paralyze me, but just then a man speaks, causing me to look up at him, and I recognize him. It's the king, the older King Ares. He whispers, looking at me with an indescribable look in his eyes. But how? What is this? How? He adds, his voice tremulous as he takes a step down before slowly advancing towards me, his eyes suddenly gleaming with unshed tears, and I stop walking and stand rooted in my spot. But just then a sharp pain pierces my chest, sending me tumbling to my knees as I struggle to breathe. the beat in my ears getting louder and louder before that familiar lightning bolt strikes in my head, sending me on my back. The king kneels next to me, tears now trailing down his cheeks as he pulls me into his arms while I fight him off, not understanding what's going on. "It's okay, son, I'm here, you're safe now, it's okay," he says, holding me down before another man rushes over to help him. And just then, as if I've been hit by a brick in the head, my life flashes in front of my eyes. All my memories, everything hitting me all at once, and "Father?" is the last thing I say as darkness takes over. Abomination. Council member. My king. I call Anselm as he keeps on muttering no, tears trailing down his cheeks, his eyes glazed over while still holding on to Aries, whose eyes are also glazed over, looking like he's having a seizure. The guards move to help them up, but I stop them. I don't know what's happening, but I know we mustn't disturb them. I can feel their auras mixed, encircling them. After a moment, he comes out of it, but his eyes are still dark silver, which means it's still his Leakin's eyes, as he suddenly falls on his bum from his kneeling position, still holding Aries, who muttered a "father" before going out cold. "My king, are you all right?" I ask him, still kneeling in front of him with a concerned frown on my face, taking in his disoriented expression. It's like he has just awakened from a nightmare. He looks up at me before his face suddenly morphs into something frightening. His aura starts spreading across the whole palace, causing even the humans to gasp, hugging themselves as the whole palace suddenly becomes dark like a storm is coming. I lean back, also affected by it, and he gets up, Aries still in his arms, before he suddenly opens a link giving instructions to everyone, his voice sounding inhumane. His first instruction is for the royal guard to see to it that Nolan and his bride do not leave their chambers. Causing a frown on my face, he says to not let anyone, not even the human guests, out until he says so. When done, he makes his way out of the hall, causing us to quietly follow behind him, not daring to speak even though we have so many questions. How is Aries here? Where has he been all this time? What happened to him? And why was he so cold when I held his hand just now? As the last remaining elder of the Silver Council, I have known Anselm since he was a boy, but in all the years, I have never seen him like this. He has great respect for humans. He would never traumatize them the way he just did. We don't follow him to his bedchambers, but head to the crown room. We have to allow him some privacy with his son. We will wait there for him to call on us should he wish or need to. I open the link since I'm the only one who can and let him know that we will be here when he needs us. He doesn't say anything, but I know he heard me. Nova. Ah! I cry out, placing a hand on my chest, causing Lydia to drop what she was doing as my knees hit the floor, feeling a sharp pain in my chest. My heart, to be exact. Nolan, I mutter, suddenly hit with all his emotions at once, all so strong and intense. I don't understand. What's wrong? Lydia asks, concerned, kneeling next to me. Something's happening to him. I can feel it, I tell her, tears pooling in my eyes. And just then we hear footsteps, causing me to scramble to my feet. Lydia helps me up and I rush out of the dining area. What's wrong? Where's Noaticus? I ask Linus, running after him as he makes his way to the staircase, and he stops before turning to look at me, looking like he's in a hurry. He's back at the palace. I forgot something we need and I asked him to stay behind. So dash. What asterisk, you left him there by himself? I ask, horrified as panic washes over me, but feel Lydia placing her hands on my shoulders. Yes. He'll be fine. I told him to head on inside, he says, looking at me with a confused frown, not understanding my panic. No, something's wrong with him. Something's happening to him. I tell him and he frowns, confused like I'm losing my mind, as he looks between me and Lydia, and I open my mouth to speak again, but feel the familiar pain in my chest, causing me to groan. My hand going to my chest again. He wants to know what's happening, but Lydia tells him to go get what he needs and go back to Nolan before turning me around, her grip becoming firm on my shoulders. Breathe, she says, And I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding, and the pain disappears, leaving me wondering what was happening. I know Linus doesn't know about him, and I shouldn't have gone off at him like that. I hate what a mess I've been since he walked out that door, but I can't help myself, and now I just felt him. I felt his emotions. Overwhelming emotions. I hated the idea of him going over there, and my stomach won't stop turning. I'll die if anything happens to him. Nothing's going to happen to him. He's going to be fine, she says, and pulls me into a hug. I just want him to come back so we can start thinking about where to go and leave this city. Staying here is scaring me. It's too risky, and now he left him out there all alone. Easily noticeable. Unlike when he's there too, he rushes past us again with an apologetic look as he heads out, and I just tighten my hold on Lydia. I don't understand what's going on. I want him to come back. And he will, she says, still in the hug. But you need to calm down. You're overthinking this, and you're making yourself sick. I know you've been through a lot and that you're scared, but you'll drive yourself insane if you continue like this, she adds. And maybe she's right. Maybe I'm feeling things that aren't even there because I've been driving myself crazy ever since he left. Maybe he saw something there, something that triggered his emotions, but it doesn't mean something's wrong. I also realize that I'm being selfish right now. She's the one who just lost her husband. She's the one I should be comforting. I pull back at that thought. Have you heard anything from Kian? I ask. Since Kian's been gone since we woke up, and he didn't tell anyone where he was going. No. But I have an idea where he could be. He needs time to process everything that's happened. I'm sorry, Lydia. I'm sorry we brought destruction into your home. I'm sorry for everything. We should have known better. We dash. Shh. Asterisk, she says, hugging me again. Everything that's happened. I'm torn. Yes. But there's nothing we can do about it now. You didn't force us to make the scarifies. We decided to because we know how it feels like to lose a child, and we wanted to prevent another parent from going through what we went through. Plus, we didn't believe the whole kidnapping thing. We saw how much you loved each other, and we saw that he was a good person who was just trying to live his life with someone that he loved. He wasn't hurting anyone, she says. And I appreciate her words. I'm sad that we'll have to part ways soon, but we have to. We can't put their lives in danger any more than we already have. We have cost them so much, and yet she's so forgiving. I will never forget them. We head back to the kitchen to finish what we were doing. After that, Linus's place is beautiful, but it definitely lacks a woman's touch. I was surprised to find out he lives alone when I first arrived, especially since the walls are full of family photos of him and a woman I assume to be his wife and 2 girls. Lydia says he lost his family in a freak accident 6 years ago. My heart breaks for him. I can't imagine what he went through. Lydia says he hasn't been with anyone since then. Feeling we have done a good job, we decide to make lunch, but we hear the door opening, causing Lydia to move to the entrance, both thinking it could be Kian. Since we are not expecting anyone else just yet, I'm glad he's home. I was worried about him. I also decide to move to the entrance, wanting to see him. I haven't had time to really apologize to Kian for anything. Everything's just been such a mess. I don't expect him to forgive me right now. I know it's too soon, but I want him to know how sorry I am, how Nolan and I both are, and I'm hoping in time he'll find it in his heart to forgive us. I place the dish towel on the sink and head out. What do you mean closed? I hear Lydia's alarmed voice say just as I come into her view, and my eyes widen, my heart immediately accelerating as they land on Linus. They both give me a look that sends a cold shiver down my spine, and I just know something has gone terribly wrong. What's going on? Why are you back? Where's Atticus? I bombard him with questions, my knees suddenly feeling weak as I rush past him, heading to the door. Athena? I hear Lydia calling after me, but ignore her and open the door. I see the car parked out front, but Nolan's not there. Where is he? I ask, my voice not sounding like my own as fear starts to paralyze me. The palace gates were closed when I returned. They weren't letting anyone in. He says, causing me to stagger backward as despair washes over me. Lydia. What? Why would they do that? Nova asks with a horrified expression, while my own heart starts banging against my chest like it's going to leap out and fall at my feet. I don't know. The guards at the gate said something had happened and they weren't letting anyone in. You should have asked them to get him. You took him there. You shouldn't have come back here without him. Nova cuts him off, her hands starting to tremble. I did, but they said they weren't letting anyone in or out, Linus says, causing a sense of dread to wash over me. Could they have discovered Nolan? Is that what Nova felt? God, please let it be anything but that. Just then, the front door clicks open, causing us to snap our heads to it. But it's Kian. What? He asks, looking at our expressions, but I don't reply to him. Linus starts saying something, but I don't hear it as I walk up to Nova. Seeing the hopelessness in her eyes, this is exactly what she feared. I place my hand on her back. They know, she murmurs, her voice quavering as she bends down like she's having stomach cramps. Clutching her stomach, you don't know that we don't know that there could be a whole different explanation and he could be completely fine. I try to reassure her, but my own tone betrays me. I'm scared for him. For both of them. No, there isn't. I can feel it. I know it. Something happened. She whispers with a broken voice as tears flood down her cheeks before suddenly straightening up and wiping them with her sleeves. Take me there, please. Take me to him. Take me there, she says, looking at Linus while he's still looking confused. They won't let us in. They've closed down the whole place. I don't care. I'll find a way in. Just take me there. I won't let him die alone. Athena. I grab her by the shoulders, trying to calm her down as she starts to lose it. Losing it won't help us. We need to think of something, but she doesn't listen or even respond to it. She snatches the key out of Linus's hand and runs to the door, but Kian blocks her way. Get out of my way, Kian. He needs me. And you can't help him like that, Athena. Even if they've discovered him, you can't do anything like this. That's the king's palace. You can't just bulldoze your way in there. You will get yourself killed. Is that what you want? Is that what you think he wants? Kian says. But she screams, saying she doesn't care before starting to shift, causing my eyes to widen. But just then, Linus injects her with something and she collapses to the floor. What did you do? I ask, looking at him as he holds the syringe in his hand. Aconite, he says, causing me to look at him confused. Why does he have aconite? He hasn't been living with a wolf for years now. Linus's wife was a werewolf. He knows about wolves, and I was going to tell him Nova is one, but it looks like he figured it out himself. What are we going to do? Kian asks with a terrified expression, but Linus shouts over us, asking us what's going on. I tell him I'm going to explain everything to him on our way back to the palace and tell Kian to ensure Nova doesn't leave. Linus tells him to take her down to the basement, saying there's a room that will be able to hold her down there if she wakes up. I'm glad, cause I didn't want Kian to have to inject her with wolf's bane again. Linus picks up his car keys and we head out. I don't know what we are going to do when we get there, but it's better than sitting here and doing nothing. Maybe we'll eventually find a way to get in, or we'll at least find out exactly what it is that's happening. Aries. I shoot up, panting, and I'm disoriented for a moment as I look to my left, feeling a hand on mine, to see my father looking at me with an expression I can't describe before getting up and engulfing me in a hug. I hug him back as I come out of the disoriented state. I can't believe I'm home. I remember I know who I am. I'm in my father's arms. I can't believe Cora did that to me. She killed me. My father pulls back, cupping my face, tears running down his cheeks. Mind doing the same, my son, he says, his voice quavering before pulling me tight against him again. Unable to speak as he starts shaking with sobs, I tighten my arms around him too, as I also do the same, letting it all out. I don't know for how long we stay like that before I hear him speak. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know better. I'm sorry. I didn't come for you, he says. But how could he? He thought I was dead. You have nothing to be sorry for. You didn't know. I try to tell him, my voice breaking. Hearing his pain, I should have looked better at that body. I should have made sure. I should have felt it, he says. And I know it's just pain talking. There's no way my father would have accepted I was dead without making sure I was. I'm sorry, Aries. I'm sorry for everything you went through, my son, he says, causing me to pull back and look at him. Did I let him in? You saw everything. I saw it all, he says, before pulling me into a tight hug again, repeating how sorry he is, and how much he loves and missed me. I would have never told him everything. He didn't need to know it. It was unnecessary, but now it's too late. He already saw for himself, and he might never get over it. My father and I aren't just regular lichens, we are hybrids, what others now call an abomination. We are half lichen, half vampire, but no one knows that. No one can, not even our closest family, like the higher council or my brother Nolan. If it got out, the kingdom would revolt, as everyone would come to know of what my great-grandfather did. A long time ago, before the Great War, when all the species coexisted, my grandfather, Ares, was in love with a vampire princess. When the war broke out, the princess died in battle, and my grandfather took his own life. Not wanting to live without her, they left behind a son. My father, he was 4 at the time. My great-grandfather was supposed to hand my father over and let be done what was done to all the others. But he didn't have the heart to do it. He kept my father, and kept what he was a secret. He had a witch make him a ring that would suppress his vampire side. It would make it submit to the lichen side, forcing it to remain asleep. But he soon realized that my father didn't show any signs of being a hybrid. His vampire side was dormant and never awaked, and they all thought it was over, that they had gotten away with it, until my father had me. I inherited my father's hybrid genes, and, unlike my father, my vampire side wasn't dormant. It was just as active as my lichen side. I craved blood. I was a full-on hybrid, so the ring was given to me. It kept me from hungering for blood, and forced my vampire side back. It forced it to sleep. I didn't like it, but I had no choice, and now I'm glad it was done, 'cause if it became public knowledge, I'd be really dead, as Cora would have been prepared for it. Even though my father's vampire side isn't active, it's still there, and that's how we are able to share memories. That's how he was able to see and feel everything the same as me when it came crashing back. That's how he knows everything I did and went through. These past months we pull back again, and I look to my left to see a bucket, and I can hear a heart beating inside it. But it's not too loud like before. It's calm, and I know it's my mind. I was alive when Cora gutted me and took it, chanting incoherent words, and Nolan's, "Oh my God, Father, you need to get her away from my brother." When she removed my heart, she was dash. I know, and I have instructed the guards to separate them, he says, and I reach for the bucket with trembling hands, opening it to see my heart swimming in blood with herb-like things on it, and my tears can't help but flow. How can someone do this to someone? Why? I whisper. So she can sit on the throne and be queen, my father replies. Placing a hand on my back, I close the bucket and place it back down. But my eye glances at the clock on the wall, causing me to jump to my feet, seeing it's 9 p.m. Nova. Your mate? My father says, and I nod. I would have sent for her, but I don't know where she is. I'll call Mateus to have it done. No, I'm going myself, I tell him. But he tries to stop me. He makes all sorts of excuses, but I know he's just scared 'cause he just got me back. But I can't stay stuck in this palace forever anyway. She must be so confused by what Linus told her. I tell him, heading to the door, but my eyes widen when he tells me No was let out, which means she doesn't know what happened. She must be out of her mind with worry. My father catches hold of my arm, following behind, causing me to stop. I don't know how, but I know she's your mate, and there's nothing I can do to stop you, but please at least take some of the guards with you, he begs me with a terrified look in his eye, causing my heart to clench, and I pull him into a hug once more. I will. I promise. I tell him before pulling back from the hug. I love you. I tell him, leaning our foreheads together, and he tells me he loves me. A few more tears that we quickly wipe off, escaping our eyes after letting go of each other. I head downstairs, my mate's face, the only thing on my mind.